Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of Inspired Action, where we dive into the most pressing leadership challenges and hope to inspire you to take a more coach-centered and people-focused approach to leadership. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and it's time to get started with our three amazing guests for today. Welcome to another episode of Inspired Action. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and I'm here with three more incredible guests today to answer this question. How do you handle situations where your emotions or biases affect your leadership? But first, a quick intro. We have with us today, first and foremost, Nelson Almanzar. Nelson, founder of WWIN Innovations. He is a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. Portia Parker Griffin. Portia is founder and CEO of Fly High Coaching, where she helps organizations attract, engage, and retain high caliber professionals. Paula Miles, last but not least, an experienced leader boasting a stellar 30-year career as an energy utility executive and a sought-after mentor. Let's just jump right in with Nelson, man. How do you handle situations where your emotions or biases affect your leadership?
I would start with it depends. It depends on, right? It's situation dictates, but it really does depend on the scenario and but most importantly your level of self-awareness. And I think experience is the biggest teacher. And I'll give an example, a small example, even when you're dealing with customer service, things like that, where you want some to get over some hurdle. And those are like moments where you can, if you have the self-awareness of an emotion, when things don't go your way. What I've learned is in whether it's dealing with customer service or something more severe, a partner, a friend, family, or at work, it's being able to know when to pause and like, okay, this is what's going on. What am I? Where am I interpreting things? What's recognizing that the soon as the emotions begin to rise or the bias. And when I think of bias, it's my way of thinking, and that's the only way, or or from my own perspective.
Yeah.
It's being able to pause and examine. And so I would say that's a continuous practice where the situation acts as I would say, an opportunity to learn.
Yeah, that awareness piece is absolutely critical, right? As emotions are clues for us, right?
Yes,
Awesome.
yes.
Let's jump over to Portia.
Yes, Kyle, I think about a few things. So, the first thing that I try to focus on is the main goal of the whole situation, right? So, what is the goal of what we're doing or trying to accomplish? And then, based on that goal, I consider if I'm being objective with my own thoughts or rationale. And I also like to think about if I'm being influenced by other people or ideas, which I think is common for everyone. We have voices in our head and think of things. And when we stop and reflect, we notice that those aren't even our thoughts, right? So I might ask myself, a question like, is this my original thought, right? Then I try to think about any areas where I might be emotionally invested or biased, right? So, in that, I look at my physical reactions, right? So, what is my heartbeat like? Is my heart racing? Am I sweating, right? Those are just some clues. A lot of my clients, describe getting that feeling in the pit of your stomach, right? All of those emotional reactions might be a clue that you are emotionally invested in this situation, perhaps, to a negative degree. Right. After that, I'm a researcher. So, after we've done those kind of head and heart kind of check ins, I might do some research, right, to make sure that our leadership strategy is sound, right? And we might weigh the pros and the cons of different alternatives, right? So, that might involve thinking about, right, the positives. So what's the best or ideal outcome in this situation? I might ask myself that. um, I think asking questions is so important. Another great one is, can my team and I actually achieve these outcomes, right? Then you would want to reflect on the other end, right? So what are the negatives or the worst outcomes? And then what's the probability of these things, right? What's the probability that we have a positive outcome? And what's the probability that we have an unwanted or perhaps negative outcome?
Yeah.
If I kind of move through all of that and I'm still unsure about how I'm handling things, I might discuss the situation with a trusted colleague. If I go this route, I make sure that the person I'm asking for advice or just bouncing ideas off of is not directly involved in the situation, so they aren't biased themselves. So for this reason, I try to not ask, family members or close friends because they're innately biased, right? So
That's
those
right.
are just a few things that I might do.
I love it. And piggybacks on, Nelson talking about awareness, but you kind of took it to a different level, especially with the physicality of that. And those clues can be huge indicators, even if we're not processing exactly what we're feeling in the moment, right? A lot of times fear and excitement can show up physically the same, but we gotta process what it is. And so I think it's always that step towards awareness as opposed to avoidance. And I think that's a lot of what you were talking about, is all those different ways is to explore that. I love it. Paula.
So when I began to think about how it would respond to this, I thought about kind of the end in mind, and that is the effect on leadership. And in the end, emotional awareness and bias management are not these side skills at all. They're really central to effective leadership
Yeah.
because they create the space for clarity, connection, and trust to grow. And those are the kinds of environments that we want to have for the people that we lead, heck, that we want to be able to operate in, because that's where performance thrives. And we are about thriving and not just existing. And so when I thought about that, the other thing that I heard Nelson say was the power in the pause, recognizing what you're feeling. So for me, understanding where I feel those emotions in my body and being able to pause and figure out, okay, well, so what's going on with this? Why am I feeling this way? And generally, emotions give us great information. But what I like to say to people is that emotions don't get to dictate how we respond or how we react. So awareness is important for that. So what is this emotion trying to tell me? And then I reflect and go a little deeper. Okay, this is what's happening, or that's what's happening. And then stepping back. So then it may be, okay, how do I manage this? Sometimes it may be, you know what? I tell you what, let's park this for a minute. Or, hey, this is a good time to take a break. And I go off and collect myself so that I can come back in full form. When I notice that maybe bias is creeping in, I try to meet it with compassion and curiosity. What's coming up? What's driving this? So that piece of it too is really important, that curiosity. And when I make a mistake, which we do, which I have, I try to model growth in that, explore what happened. I acknowledge it. If I have to, apologize or repair or fix, then I do that. And it's really, when I'm working with teams of people, and being vulnerable in that way, it really models how others can do the same thing.
Yeah, I love it. It's so much in that, nicely tied together with a little bit of everybody, right? I think I hear awareness. We all, I think, appreciate the power of the pause, right? Sometimes underestimate it, even just kind of stepping back from that and really thinking about our thinking, right?
Mhm.
And recognizing what's going on, what's really creating the emotional charge in this moment. Well, that's a wrap for another edition of Inspired Action, the Leadership Forecast. We're so grateful for our guests today and the impact they're making with the work they do. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel to watch the longer version of this episode, and be sure to like, comment, connect with, and follow me and each of our guests. You'll find all of our links in the caption of this video. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in every Thursday at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern for new episodes.